So in regards to the journey of self, I'm going to do a whole video on this all on its own because it's such a big topic. Okay. I have my own reference points, and I also really appreciate other teachers and current and from the past reference points in regards to it. So, which ring true for me. But one thing I'd like to say that with the dimension of no self that I currently find myself in, just as a description that if it helps, is that I don't find, I no longer find an interior place here. I cannot access an interior life. And it's really hard to describe. Let's see. So everything is, where I find myself now is really in the now moment. And we hear about this, right? And many people long for it. And you've probably dropped into it. How many people here feel like they know what the now moment can feel like? Yeah. It's really tricky to talk about. You know, I actually feel like I need to open it up to questions, and maybe I'll come back to this. Okay? So, yeah, it's not wanting to come right now. So I'd like to open up to anybody who feels like they have a question from last time. I think that will help. Just get it going for today. Okay, Chris.
So, Susanna, the best I can approach that is by thinking of being so present that some people talk about it like you're in a zone. So you're not, you're a little separate from thinking, and you're just watching things. So there's not an active part of your awareness. There's not a initiating part of the awareness. And, it just doesn't seem to be expansive to me because it's, I'm not that expanded. But when I hear you say that, that's as close as I can get. Does that make sense? I mean, it's, when I hear you talk, I think, well, you're way beyond what I've experienced, But that's like a building block. I think I have, and not often.
Yeah. Well, it's there's definitely a progression of this journey that we grow into, right, and open up to.
Yeah.
So, and it's really almost impossible to understand the progression that we're going to be entering next, where you're going to be entering next. So all we can know is what we know, and we can get hints, and still that's what you know. Places you've dropped into before. That's as far as one's own imagination can go about what's possible. Yeah. And, we can also observe, that's as a guidance. We can observe nature, we can observe others, people teachers, and get a sense of a way of being that is different from our own, and we can open to just by welcoming it, being curious about it, dropping our own personal definitions of what anything's supposed to look like along the way. Anything we've read about how it's supposed to look like, because that really can stand in the way, as you know. So all the belief systems that we've taken in over time can really create limitations. Michael.
Yes, I have a question. I've heard you talked about unity as in childhood, and then the further reestablishment of that, and as the major point of and then going on from there.
Right.
And I wanted to clarify what unity means. And let me just explain where the question's coming from. I've heard other teachers talk about the first major step as a shift of identity from the mind body to consciousness itself, pure consciousness. As they use different terminology than unity. So it's partly, it might be a question partly of usage of words, but it also, I think it might also actually be a different definition as well, and I need to clarify which it is. So my understanding that I've heard other teachers say is the first major step is, I am not the mind, I am not the body, I am pure consciousness. So, and I've also heard them said, everything resolves at that point, resolves, is that the right word, into a manageable duality. I know who I am, pure consciousness, but I don't really know what all of everything else is. Although there may be an intuitive sense of being one with everything, it's not fully and palpably and completely realized, that unity. So when you use the word unity, it seems different than this idea of this first step I've heard other people mention, that the shift of identity from the mind body to consciousness itself. So I don't know if that's clear what I'm saying, but.
Well, for sure. I do mean something different from that. Unity is, it's simply includes everything. So it would include that shift. But you're right, it's a wonderful way to put it, that it's a manageable duality. But it's not what real freedom is. I mean, to be something manageable. You know, it's not including all the things that we're unaware of how, you know, the body, all the things that are difficult to open to. So unity is the deepest possible understanding that everything is that. And everything that's happening here, everything that's happening there is that. And that includes duality. That includes every single thing. And that grows over time, that understanding, and deepens and deepens and deepens. All our belief systems of what that doesn't include, what divine doesn't include. Those are all belief systems, right? that it doesn't include every single thought, sensation, personality, everything that's happening in the world that we like and don't like. That's as far reaching as unity is, you know. So that understanding is possible, that complete understanding. So going to I'm not the body is to realize that we're pure awareness, consciousness, and spirit, whatever you want to call it. And that's in order to be able to create some separation between body and that, because we get over-identified with body and point of view and feelings and all that, right? So when you can separate and have some space, it's a relief. But after that, you have to come back and reconcile all the things that you separated from. And that's love. Love is what does that. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. So unity really does fully indicate in the way you expressed it there a seeing and experiencing everything as that, everything as the self. And in that there is no duality, manageable duality or whatever. There's just a complete unity is what I think I understand. And as you went further on in your description, as it developed further, when you talked about the body, how would you in a few sentences or however long describe the essence of the movement from unity as it went further on and as you developed it last week?
I'm not sure what you're pointing to exactly.
Well, you
Like what
mentioned the
points?
body. I think one of the last things you mentioned last week was how at a certain point there was a subtle sense in which the body itself, I'm putting my words, which I prefer not to, but my understanding was that the body itself still had a separate sense to itself. And it seemed like you were saying last week, one of the last things you said it was there was a shift where the body no longer was participating in any separate sense. Something like that. Or maybe I got it wrong, so I don't know.
No, I see what you're saying. That shift actually is where the self-reflection mechanism ended. So the ability to look at oneself at all, which is what creates an interior life, ended. So unity has a lifespan, and it does all the things it's supposed to do during that time, which is my favorite word to use for that time is reconciliation. It reconciles all the parts inside that are dualistic, that have been confused and disharmonized, belief systems, all the points of view, everything that we've taken in to be true about separation, how separation is showing up for you personally, you know, including in the body, including what's held in the body. All that takes place. And for me, that was like an 8-year period. and a really enjoyable time. I really enjoyed Unity. I mean, whoever is experiencing Unity right now or is in that time, and you may not even know it fully, it's a really enjoyable time. It's not without its own work that you have to do. Yeah, work on yourself and willingness to look and all that. But it's softened by the viewpoint from the heart, with love, with a loving gaze upon everything, loving understanding for everything inside that we have a hard time with regarding ourselves. It even kind of, it just softens everything, and it makes it real apparent that there's no such thing really as a separate self. That all the things that feel like a separate self have been imagination. And so there's a loving kindness that gets extended to all these ideas, including the idea of ego, that there's such thing as an ego. We create yet another entity out of our experience by saying that's our ego. And it's easier if we break it down and say that's actually there's some shame going on. Break it down instead of just lumping it together and say that's my ego. There's confusion going on. There's sadness, or there's defensiveness, or whatever. It's much better to break it down and have loving kindness towards these things that are arising versus creating a whole nother entity out of it and calling it ego. Because there's no such thing. That's a word, a definition for feeling separate, basically. So time of unity is a time of loving kindness and understanding. And it's also a time of wanting to be in service in certain ways, of wanting to support others in different ways, be a good listening helper, to have some kind of dharmic work, that we do in the world. That's really like an arising out of that compassion and caring for others. And then when you look at another person from that point of view, you don't see a separate self. You don't see that someone is bad or wrong or anything. It's more, you can see it the way that you see your own being, that there's confusion maybe at times, and ignorance, acting out, conditioning. But you can't see it anymore as a separate self, a real person that is at fault within that all. There's no entity. So unity is when you look inside of yourself during unity, you sense that you have a center to you that's actually the divine or God or presence or beingness. Like you turn the inward gaze within and you land on a divine center. Like you can't go anywhere else, but there's God there, So there's a relationship in a way, and that relationship, over time, it grows to the point where you can't really separate yourself from that. Like you can't imagine that you are anything other than that. So the relationship dissolves. And then there's just that. But it feels like you are that. There is that feeling. And if you, whatever you put your gaze on, whatever you look at, you are that too, in some kind of way. You can sense that. Because whatever's happening inside is happening on the outside. We project separation onto others when we feel separate, and we project unity onto others when we feel that, you know. And so then the following opening that took place for me and for others, I'm sure, not many people talk about it really because it's so hard to give voice to it, is that unity actually has an end in terms of as sort of an experience to have. Even when you come to the end of unity, you don't really feel like there's an experience of unity anymore. You can't really differentiate anymore. It's so integrated. As many of you know, when you have had a shift and you really start to live that shift, you can't really reflect back so much what it used to be like. It takes a while, you know, it might be a couple years even, where you look back and you go, oh yeah, there used to be a real sense of separate self here. And I can't really feel that in the same way, you know, or there used to be more defensiveness. I can't really feel that in the same way. It's more of a memory, you know. So during unity, you have a memory as you progress of what it was like to feel separate. And that starts to go away, that memory. It's integrated. It's not like, you know, you can't, you know, picture it. But what used to feel like a separate self is now a divine center. So that's like the first real shift out of separate self into a self that feels integrated and whole, one. And that's what we're all longing for. Most of us, you know, is longing to go home and feel that integration. And the reason we feel so at odds and so uncomfortable is because we're not living in that way, that wholeness. Do you all know what I'm talking about? When you feel uncomfortable, and that's what's really driving the seeker. It's a really wise thing, feeling uncomfortable. So it's a grace, but it's also takes effort and some work to open to that, to be that. And it takes a sincerity. It doesn't come necessarily, and sometimes maybe there are some people where it's come without any effort. But there is something, there is something to working for it. And that's why all the spiritual practices are here to do. And some are, of course, more direct than others. So, you know, in terms of the map, you know, I wasn't trying to, I was just sharing what has taken place here. For me, unity evolved into something else. I mean, and I mentioned this in the first part one, that unity and oneness is a fact. You know, it's just a fact. It's not like it goes anywhere. It's just the self that is cognizant of that unity it falls away. So then you're purely the experience of whatever's taking place in the moment. That's kind of why I had a hard time opening up. It was just like the pure experience of the moment was it was so intense. You know, it's not like I respond or speak just because I'm supposed to. You know, there's nobody here to go, okay, this is what we do, and there's a beginning, middle, and end, and so on. It's just happening. So we have different people, Ted, that are, I see your hand moving. What do you want me to do? Stop talking? Oh. Anyway, so yeah, so it's just like the self that is in awareness, even if you don't feel it, of the fact that there's oneness, falls away. And that is the self that arises through the ability to reflect. And Bernadette Roberts calls it the unconscious aspect of it. She calls it reflexive thinking, because she says there are two modes. And one is the unconscious aspect, which is it's doing itself without our awareness. And then the conscious aspect is the reflective. I've always used the word reflective because I didn't really think of using another word, but it's true. We're not always consciously reflecting on ourselves. There's a lot of unconscious times. I mean, most of our lives probably it's happening automatically. That the mind apparently has the ability to look at itself, and so that reflexive thinking arises when we're babies, for the most part. And so that creates the ability to reflect, self-reflect, and that makes us self-conscious, not just like animals and other things that are conscious beings, but they're not necessarily self-conscious. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. So just to put, I think this is what you said. I'll just repeat back one point. So as this experience of unity goes further and further and deepens, there comes a point where there's not any sense, whether it's conscious or unconscious, either one, of a separate person reflexively reflecting on it. There's simply and only the now moment of the totality of everything.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, but there's no more. What is possible that happened, that takes place, is that the reflection and reflexive thinking actually stops.
Stops altogether.
Yeah.
There's no self whatsoever that's doing any reflexive. Or
Right. Well, that reflexive thinking is what produces the feeling of having a self.
Yeah.
So without that, you're just pure functioning.
And I guess my initial question that the way I'd heard it broken down by other people, other teachers, the first step being the disidentification, if you will, from the body, mind, and being only purely consciousness itself. Your experience of unity included that and more than that, which was a sense of unity. So it's just that when you say unity, it means what some teachers refer to as the first step and then some. So that's what, for myself, that's what I'm needing to clarify. So I think I get it.
Well, the first step is the first step. I mean, it's and everybody has their first step. It's not necessarily going to be in the order that you
I see.
described.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Disidentification is a transcendent teaching. Some people go for complete oneness, tantra kind of perspective, and just open up to that everything is that, and just everything you look at. That can be a teaching too. At some point, the other one has to come around, and there has to be a design of, a separation. So all of this is very intelligent. The sequence is very intelligent for you, for each person. But, you know, as you know, a lot of teachings end there, you know, and say, okay, you're not that, and stay there. And I mean, everybody has to be true to themselves as to what is, you know, the how far you want to go. I mean, it won't, even if that's what you want, that's not necessarily what's going to happen. You know, life has its intelligence and going back home intelligence.
Yeah, there seems to be quite a mystery. Some people, for whatever reason, who knows reasons, but and you touched on this last week too, which is that come to a certain point and they feel that it's complete. It's a natural feeling.
Yeah.
And yet and still something further develops, goes beyond what they felt was complete. And in this kind of way that I had understood the map before, people can feel it's complete after they realize that they are pure consciousness rather than the mind of the body. That's a step that sometimes is felt to be complete. And then there's another step where this unity that you're talking about is felt, as you said for yourself, complete. And then there was the surprise, and you referenced Bernadette Roberts, that, oh no, even that is not yet complete. And there's a further yet more profound, even yet surprise beyond that even.
Sure.
So I guess at any point a person can quite naturally, according to their own destiny and who knows why, feel that this must be the conclusion, and then yet there can be more, and there can be more, and there can be more. And it's all innocent and natural,
Yeah. That's,
you know, experience of that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susanne. Yeah, it's helpful. Yeah, thanks.
So we'll go with the noisiest one, Ted. Unmute yourself. We'll get to other people in a moment.
I had to find my cursor. There I am. I think I'm unmuted. Am I on now? Thank you. Good. Good to be here. I wasn't here last week, but I did start to. I went on, found you on YouTube and watched a good deal of it, and was really reminded of several things. I was reminded particularly of when you and I first met, and there was an immediate recognition. And that recognition is kind of like the thing, if I picture two waves in the ocean, you might say, wave looking across at each other saying hi and hi, yet at the same time realizing it's all the ocean. That what's saying hi is what is said hi to. And you know what I mean. It's and so it's that and I saw it very playfully when you talked about how as you're young you'd look in people's eyes to see if you could connect that. You want to be connecting with, because you were connected and you would see your parents as connected and what was going on. They would be operating, which we all do. We drop in and we just operate without thought of without reflection or anything. We're just doing what we're doing. We're fully integrated with what's happening, and we're just being. And then we pull back, and all of a sudden this separation happens because we pull back and begin to think. And one of the problems with this, with what you're talking about here, is that it's very difficult to speak about. And the reason it's difficult to speak about is because speaking uses words, and words are something of the mind, and we try to grasp it with the mind. And the whole thing becomes a mental exercise, and we try to classify it or string it out or put it or quantify it or put it in some kind of box. And it's a living, vital experience, and it just can't be. That's what's difficult to speak, why it's difficult to speak of. And yet speaking happens. and
Right.
we must speak of it, and so on. But that's why I was getting all excited, because I was having a hard time. I was fighting within myself the desire, because I recognize the desire to try to understand it, and yet I'm much happier when I'm just totally blissfully ignorant of what the hell's going on, and just allow it to just be in that state of wonder of this is that's happening, and just to be in the joy of that, and to be in that oneness. So I get it. Also, I get the desire to try to quantify it, or to put it into some kind of ordered box that I can hang on and say, oh, this is it. No, it's a living thing. It's so beyond that. That's just, it's an inadequate tool to try to use for something which is ineffable.
Yeah. I'm going to turn up the light behind this, maybe have a little more on my light on my face. I always forget how dark it is sometimes.
Mhm.
Where is it? Oh, here you are. Someone gave me this little light that you put behind your computer, and it makes it a little brighter. Oh,
How
hello.
about you? There you are. You are
So,
bright.
what I love about you, Ted, is that you have so much trust. I've actually never heard you, since I've known you, express a lack of trust in the process.
Mhm. That's just, yeah, from living it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've been living it a long time, so it really shows, So even when you're in the unknown, you don't really understand or whatever, it's the trust is there. That's shining through. So we need that to be able to really sink into not understanding,
Mhm.
and what that not understanding can lead to. More unknown, taking us in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as a teacher, and you have that, and that's something that I wish for everybody, to have trust and the unknown, and the lack of a paradigm, not needing a paradigm to follow.
Yeah. It's really stepping off into the void. It really is. The trust is only because you have seen who you are, you know who you are, that you can take that step. But that step is maybe even a backward step, which is to be that place before thought, before mind, before being, even.
Yeah.
Prior to being, prior to anything. It's just,
Exactly.
I love it. It's so good to speak of this.
And who you are is that divine center that one opens up to, so that when you look inside, you rest as that. Your being is solid. It's gazing back at you, and no matter what's taking place, you have that ground. They call it the ground of being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody really longs for, is to know that we are that ground of being, so no matter what's happening in our lives, and that there's always this solid ground that is whole. Yeah. And is the only thing that doesn't want anything from us. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, really. Okay. Well, who is next? Raise your hand if you'd like to be next. Okay, Paul. And then we'll go to Atreya.
The one thing I kept thinking as you were talking is that the one thing I would like to be is to be rid of my interior life. I've had so many feelings coming up lately. And as I examine them, I realize most, if not all of them, aren't true. And yet I still have to field through this to realize, well, wait, is this really what's going on? And it takes a lot out of me, going through it. This past Tuesday, I got triggered at work. I think I don't know, something happened. I came home, I was so uncomfortable, I didn't know why. And I realized that it was a shame issue that I wasn't really looking at. And my instinct with a shame issue is to watch Netflix, go for a walk, call a friend, do something like that. And this time, I just decided to feel it and go into it. And what happened is that I really felt like a lot of love came in with it, as if I was being comforted. And yet I saw where it came from. I mean, I could see a specific incident where it all came from. And I cried, and I just remember it took a lot out of me physically. I missed work the next day, then I missed work the next day for something else. And I see a lot of thoughts come up in my mind, and I realize that, look, when I was a kid, I used to daydream a lot. And I would pretend I was talking to President Johnson or the astronauts or something like that, just to be different from where I was as a kid, because it was boring. Real life was kind of boring, and so I could get caught up in that and making up parallel realities has been something I've done. Sometimes it's kind of fun, I think this is where fiction writers get a lot of their work from. But at the same time, I find myself, as I get older, I really don't like doing that anymore. And I really don't have the same feeling for it. And I got to thinking back to where that moment was where I felt triggered. What happened? It was something that happened at work. It was just something somebody said, and it just came at me the wrong way. And if I had realized that wasn't true, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble, I think. I could have saved myself a lot of discomfort, because I'm having, it's uncomfortable now in a lot of ways. And I kind of look forward to the day when I can just let all that go. And I can say that I feel like it's happening now. I can see it, and label it. And sometimes I'm able to move away, but I envy you, Susanne Marie.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay, all right.
You know what you're going towards, and that's what you long for. You don't need to have whatever it is that is happening here. You have a longing for, and an intelligence, a knowing that there's more for you, and you've been touching on it, and we talk about that sometimes, and it's deepening in you. The interior life that you're speaking about, Paul, is an interior life of the separate self.
Yeah.
And of course we want that to go, and that's a really positive motivation. And you have glimpses, and you're the being self of that you are touching on, that's growing in you. It's becoming more important to you. It's, and we get what we fall in love with. So it's growing more it's strengthening. And that in your interior gaze, your desire to not be drawn out into stories and things that aren't true so much, the world of the unconscious human relations it's drying up, and it needs to dry up.
And it needs to go its own course, I suppose, in its own time, in its own way.
Yeah, well, and the way it does that is by you placing more value on what's happening inside, and that
Okay.
unmoving center inside where it's constant, it's always there, it's your being, the touchstone of your being. And that's the divine center that's growing, and it's going to supersede and displace the self center as a magnetic pole. So right now there's still probably a mixture
Yeah.
and of self center and your being center. And so the more you value being, the less that sticky separate self will leave. And that's the interior life you're longing to have move out. And that's why you're less interested and fascinated by things that were like coping strategies that were wise at the time.
Yeah.
Dreamland, you know. But the interior life I was referring to, that definitely is one sort of interior life. It's the first big movement. And it's the one that we, you know, that hurts the most.
Oh.
The second interior life that I was referring to is unity.
Oh.
When you're in unity, which you'll know, you still have time. And the reason I say that you'll know is because you're so dedicated.
Thank you.
And you have been for a really long time. And life knows what your heart's desire is. You just have to remain true and keep remaining true.
Is this a lot like growing up, maturing?
Yeah, this is our spiritual evolution.
Yeah. I got to thinking that as you were talking, because like 20 or 30 years ago, I was involved in the arts community here in Louisville. And then every now and then, the people I used to know would have a gathering, and I just don't feel a connection to them at all because I moved in another direction. You know, it's like I want to say I grew up or grew away from it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we let that which is taking us away from that interiorness, that is the sacred interiorness. We let it dry up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the spiritual life. That's a life of contemplation, and it goes against the outer pole of how most people are living. But everybody has a time, and we know what the draw is, and we're meant to be loyal and true to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Atreya. Hi, sweetie. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah. You don't know how?
Hang on, yeah, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Sorry, I'm with Lisa on the weekend. We came down to Mayo, so I have her laptop, and I'm wearing these for the first time. Looking at some land, you know, but yeah, I just want to touch on Paul, what he said about what I'm sensing for me is like the tribal interior, you know, family, the interior, the dynamics. So it kind of feels like a big iceberg, like I've just kind of broken off this big iceberg, you know, this little piece of ice in the water. So a lot of falling away of things, which I kind of feel a kind of a sense of it's coming up more. It's like no place to land. I don't know whether that's the no thing, but it's just no place to grasp onto, or yet everything is happening, you know. All the supports are there, you know, and I'm down here in this beautiful, beautiful, astoundingly beautiful place for the weekend. But the unity part, you know, there's discernment. You know, I just, this is what I want to kind of maybe bring up with you. It's like, you know, this unity, you feel that everybody is you, and that, you know, tenderness and kindness and love. But if the apparent beings around you are not seeing the world from that perspective, or is that because that's already inside of me? And it's mirroring, those parts are inside of me, and it's, you know, finishing pieces with the tribe or something, or whoever. I might be a bit confusing there. It's like, because you could be massacred. You know, I have this saying of like burnt at the stake, you know. You know, you were saying you're not self-conscious anymore. It's just being itself, right?
So you mean like where you're at now is what you're?
Yeah, where I'm at now. Yeah, I'm between the unity part of, you know, that we're all, everybody is me, everybody, you know, is one. I'm always saying that to my kids, you know. And then somebody, like, say for example, Paul, somebody comes in and says something mean to him or me. Do you just accept it, or what does one do when one is self-realized, when somebody has to go through, somebody is being rude or projecting things onto them or whatever? How does one operate in that from the awakened place?
Yeah, well, from the unity point of view, which is really a heart-centered point of view. It's useful to see it from the point of view of heart, you know, and the way that heart generally sees things is through understanding, and that people are, you know, most people are in pain of some sort, you know, and how much the separate self hurts, and that what you're witnessing is usually conditioning, you know, and it's unconscious. And so to me, that's what took place during unity, is when I viewed others, it wasn't so much like, I never met, I don't really, the only piece that I can resonate with you when you said that it's a part of you is, it's more like it's a memory of what it used to be like to believe in these separate, to be separate, and what it felt like, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, everybody is God, right? Obviously. Even, and God is not just the perfected aspects of that person, but God is the confused and the ignorant and if oneness is real, then oneness is everything. So, and everybody's on a journey as that for going back home and gaining understanding, just like you. But they're at different places in that journey. You know, if you want to call it a soul, their soul journey. And to bring, if we don't want anything from somebody, like if you were to really just kind of go, well, how can I view this person if I didn't want anything from them? And there'd probably be understanding and loving kindness, to not putting up with stuff. We don't have to, our boundaries are good.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
But if we want something from somebody and we're wanting them to in any way to be different than from what they are, we create a person out of that. We create we give them a center again. as if they have a center to themselves. Well, you just realized for yourself over time that there really is no such thing as a separate self-center. Can you really find it? No. So if you can't find it, how can there be a center to them? Even if they
Okay.
even if they
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So thank you. So the ending here is like the oneness. What I feel is free falling. For me, I don't know if that's what you ever felt, but not that I'm feeling it. I'm intermittently sometimes feeling it. It's just, I just feel it's kind of like a free falling.
Yeah, it's definitely, I used to use that word too, free fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I'm
And
here
to let
feeling
yourself
more of
fall.
that.
Yeah, just fall through all your anything that used to sort of catch you, even to feel secure. Some landing,
Yeah.
keep falling through landing places and upon landing places.
Yeah. Well, life is bringing me there anyway, you know, it corners you, you know, so in so many ways, which is beautiful. I love it. But yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Susanne.
Yeah, enjoy the beauty.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, two more people, and I don't know who they are, had their hands raised. Catherine.
Hi, Susanna.
Hey.
I think my question, so you were talking last week about your journey, and there's one point you were talking about, I think you were just grappling with different issues in your life, and you, I can't remember what it was, but something about having an identity, being able to take care of your daughter, and then because of circumstances, you knew you couldn't do that.
Right.
And that so it was like your last piece of personal will that just got kind of hammered. Yeah.
Right.
So I think, I've been thinking a lot this last week about personal will and my experience with that. And I feel like a sort of life circumstances 5 years ago put me in a situation where I didn't have any options. And so there's this total surrender. And my life has not been the same since in a good way. But I'm trying to understand this personal will thing, because I have to get up every day. I had it, for instance, I've been spending the last couple of years in a creative endeavor that just finished. And so there was like a soul movement around that, and I had to be focused and get it done. But as far as my personal will, I'm trying to get a sense of what, I was in flow a lot of the time, but I still had to sort of, show up for life every day. So I'm trying to understand this personal will and what it feels like when it's just, it's just been hammered away. Are we just in flow all the time? Because I think about you and I'm like, okay, she has to get up every day and do her meetings. And so there's some movement in your being, but it's not like I don't know. I'm just trying to understand this concept.
Yeah.
Better.
It's a great question. I mean, the whole feeling into a personal will is really the spiritual journey. You could sum it up as a journey of personal will. So as personal will starts to become more oriented around the divine will, God-centered will, rather than the separate self-led will. It's a real shift.
Okay.
And then it feels more like flow.
Yeah.
But it isn't, I really don't like to give it so much quality, because then we're, if we're not in that kind of quality, we can feel like we're out of sync with the divine flow. So it's best to leave behind any idea of how it's supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we get attached to how it's feeling. It feels like flow, right? Because flow has a certain feeling to it.
Yeah.
I hear different people talk about flow, and I'm like, no one's going to stay in flow. You know, flow is just one aspect of God. So better to leave behind any reference points as to how it's going to feel, okay?
Okay.
Or look.
Okay.
With divine, now I got the word flow in my head. With divine will, it's just, it's real obvious what's next. And if you don't know what's next, there's maybe a relaxation into, and learning how to relax into not knowing. Because that will come up just as much as what's next, you know?
Yeah.
But not knowing has a lot of information in it for everybody, you know, to relax and to let go, and to let go of imagination and anticipation, and also imagining that something's wrong when we don't know what's next. So all that, like that, living in that space of the unknown is part of the letting go of whatever's still left over of the personal will, trusting it. So, and you know, the personal self piece that's still left could look at that and say, oh, there's something wrong, you know, right now. And all that's still meant to be a teacher, you know.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's living more and more in unity as it deepens, let's say, as it you know, it is a landscape that takes time to get oriented in, but also for it to imagine almost like unity is like this golden light waterfall that's starting to fill you up. It's entering you wherever, maybe in the heart. And it's just, this is imagination, okay?
Okay.
And it's entering and it's filling up every part of you. And as it does, it's softening and bringing understanding, and it's unifying, because that's what unity is. It's unifying this feeling separate, which is duality. It's unifying that experience. Okay, so duality can still exist, obviously, but it feels unified. There's understanding. A larger container is holding the dual notion, everything that seems dual. And so your whole system is filling up with that understanding. And so personal will really does become divine will. It becomes God-centered will, you know, life's will, whatever, you know, divine intelligence will. You know, use what feels right for you, or the perspective of the will from wholeness, you know.
Okay.
And so you'll know that because you won't be thinking about it anymore. It won't be something you'll be reflecting on in that way, like, I wonder if it's done, or how much is still personal will versus God-centered, you know, consciousness, or whatever. As long as there's still a question of that, it's not done. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's okay. And it's like, it's because, like I said, the spiritual journey is really a journey of will. And another way to put it is control, right? But it also, will has, you know, generates a lot of energy, like you put it, creative energy, get up in the morning energy. But the thing is that really it's never been personal will that's made us do anything. It's just that personal will is fused in to the body, mind, imagined as a separate self, that's what's making it happen. But it's just it's the energetic signature of the separate self.
So it feels like what happens through the spiritual path is sort of a clarification of, or of what, you know, it's seeing through what's not true, sort of like of the separate I will. Does that make sense? So there's a seeing that happens over time, or
Yeah, it's a seeing, it's a knowing, it's a
Yeah.
feeling, it's a sensing.
okay,
It's the operating system that changes
okay,
because of the seeing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I have one foot sort of in multiple realms right now, so it's confusing.
Yeah, I would put more attention on the body, on your body,
Okay,
not so much in the mind.
okay,
The body also has its, you know, belief in its own way of a separate self, but it's not to the degree of mind. Mind is really confused
okay, okay.
for the most part.
Yeah,
And I'm not speaking just about your mind.
yeah,
In general, mind is confused, so it's not a good place to try to figure it out and find understanding.
okay,
But the body, you know, is made of more of the elements of nature, and so it has more grounding in it.
okay,
So I would just kind of like feel from the neck down what it feels like to be here. And I know you do this,
yeah,
so put more attention, feeling the solidity and the home of body.
okay.
And how does the body intelligence, what does it want, you know?
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, so welcome. Okay, we'll go with Andrew. Hi.
Hello,
Hi,
it's
Andrew.
good to see you.
Yes.
I got a lot out of your last Zoom broadcast,
Thank you.
and I think what I've wanted to mention or ask about is something that Catherine it segues nicely from what she said. And sorry, there's a phone ringing, but it's sort of like for a long time I have felt in the morning that there's such a deep. Hang on just a second. There's this phone calling. I feel like the silence is so deep after I sleep that I can't move. I am just like paralyzed in this fullness of silence. And like Catherine mentioned, I wonder how you can like deal with computers and all this technology. And I'm just looking at it going, you know, I'm just going to have to go back to brewing wine and let all this, you know, go. I can't live this way. It can barely like get started, and life is great, but it's just so thick with the silence in the morning. This place that I seem to go when I sleep, and it's just getting more that way. It's not getting less, and it's been going on for years. So I'm just not really sure what to make of that, and if it's not like a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to make this thing stop here. Does that make any sense to you? Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's why I had a hard time starting this morning. You know, it's like sometimes the now
I'm glad
moment,
to hear that.
it doesn't want to cooperate with what's supposed to happen. It's usually pretty automatic, so that's nice. Yeah, that silence, it's teaching us to let go to the point of being stopped so completely that we don't know if we'll be resurrected. You know, it takes you, maybe swallows you up so much that you turn into syrup and you can't, you know, you don't know if another breath will come. And that's the return. That's like going return. And if you're meant to have another breath, it'll happen.
I don't know, but I like maple syrup. I do manage to put a little bit of that in some coffee or a green tea latte in the morning, but that's about all I want to do, you know? So anyway, I don't know where I'm at, but I remember back in the 90s, I realized when I was doing the energy schooling and stuff that wow, my consciousness is so different this year than last year. I don't remember what it was. I just know it was not the same person. So this has been going on for a while, but
Yeah, well, that's
it's an interesting journey. And I get a lot out of hearing you
yeah,
talk
it is.
about it.
And a lot of, different traditions will probably, they have different terms for like where you find yourself, deep contemplative, indifferentiated, different words of being one with, and it's returning back to source, and that's a process. And then when it's time to reconstitute and move again, it will. And if, it's almost like it's taking on a bit of the water quality versus the ether quality in you right now. The water is the drop really going back to the ocean, and it's heavy. It's really heavy. And so it's, and it merges with the ocean maybe, and maybe during sleep or other times. And so then to reemerge out of that, can take effort of some kind. But it's not meant to stay that way forever and just that way. It's a passageway from what my experience is. And I've heard other people say, they don't know if they're going to be able to resurrect. They don't know if they're going to be able to take another breath when they're that deep, immersed and heavy with, a very sanguine way, heavy with the full, like merging, going home, return home. But then another breath comes, and I would say that's kind of like samadhi of some sort, in a way. And as we know, like Ramana was immersed for many years in samadhi, in a type of nirva, whatever they call it, nirvakalpa, whatever, samadhi. So so deep in it, immersed deeply in it, that the body awareness and everything disappeared, and and he had to be fed and so on a little bit, and to stay alive. Not that that's going to happen to you, but we all go through different passageways, in this return home. And it's interesting how unique it is, but also how similar some of it can be too. I can feel it in you. So yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate your input.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's nice to have even though it wouldn't happen probably, to not be able to function. But it's nice to have someone in one's life that checks on one daily when you're in this kind of place, even if it's by phone, because of COVID, But like just someone who checks on you, like, oh, so you're still here.
That would be a good thing. Yeah, I live in the country in a log house, and I mean, it's like, unless there's a bird chirping in the morning, it's completely silent. There's nothing moving. And I think that sort of helps this to be even more than it used to be like that. But I like my solitude, so I can live with it. But yeah, it's good to check in with things out there. I have found that more is happening just walking my neighborhood and sort of tuning into the little rabbits and deer than anything, really. They seem to be more receptive than humans. You can see the reaction of like recognition faster. They look at you like, really?
Yeah.
and they kind of just stay there, more. So
Yeah, they
anyway, I'm getting
appreciate,
through it, but no problem.
animals appreciate when the separate self is fallen away from a human being. And, doesn't mean they won't be afraid, because they're still afraid of, at times, of one another, right? So if we're going back to being more like a creature,
I'm a
albeit
muskrat.
a silent, loving creature, they can sense non-harming, but still it would be like, you're different enough still from their kind to be, that they could be fearful. But I noticed a lot of animals just tended to relax, deeper I went.
Mhm. I'll have to try walking without my dog and see how it is, because
Oh,
they
well,
kind of react to the canine there
Yeah.
too. Yeah, she's very sweet, but they see her and they're not sure. So I'll try it.
yeah,
I'll try that one time.
sounds good. And you can wear your cloak and you'll look like some kind of animal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to know if you're going to have your real in-person workshop that you mentioned you're going to announce. Maybe I'm not trying to rush you, but I think that I'm really ready to get out of the state I'm in, so to speak.
Oh, the in-person retreat.
Different
Yeah,
private Idaho.
I keeping my attention, sort of my ear on the ground regarding COVID and safety and so on. So sometimes I feel like I want everyone to be safe. So, it's a big responsibility holding a group, a public group at this point. But I hear you, and I would love to meet you in person. So, yeah, have fun. Okay. Well, Karen, you have to unmute yourself, and then we'll go to Bob.
Is that better? Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Okay. Hi, Suzanne. So I find myself, though, I really long for oneness and unity, but most of me is often still in the individual self, the separate self. And last week you had mentioned what you found helpful for the unitive stage was yoga and meditation. And I was wondering if you had, if you could talk a little bit more about both of those and what type of yoga or meditation that you found helpful.
Well, there you are. I appreciate your desire to want to go back home to yourself. And I'm happy to share what kind I used, but I think that there are so many ways home, and some person may be attracted to qigong or tai chi or dance, or just really something that helps you get into your body and start feeling the energetic presence that you are, that you vibrate, and the energy that surrounds you as well. And that can really open the door for that, or these any kind of practice that's energetically oriented. I just did like hatha yoga. I like flow yoga, yin yoga. Meditation, I didn't have I didn't study meditation, so I think the less complicated, the better. So don't do a bunch of mantras or complicated things, because the whole goal is to be simple and to get back to simplicity and learn how to get quiet versus be busy. So whatever can help you focus to be quiet.
When I meditate, I usually just try to sit with what is, and often it's a little agitated inside, or and so I usually just try to be with whatever is, to get comfortable with it, a bit more of just being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yoga, I thought maybe you were talking about the philosophy of yoga, but for you, it was more just the asanas, kind of the movements in yoga.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Okay.
led over time to philosophy, but I
Mhm.
first did some years of learning how to be in my body, how to be, to allow attention and presence to be with each posture. It's a real focusing tool. And it also helps clear the body so that we can, so that the energy that we are, the Shakti, can really flow.
Mhm.
If you do going back to the meditation, if you do a simple mantra, make sure that it's something that is just very short, and that as your mind slows down, you willingly let the mantra kind of let go over time, and it just maybe one word will remain whenever your attention starts to drift.
Mhm.
Being with what is, I wouldn't really recommend that right now so much, because there's a time for that, to be with what is.
Mhm.
But that's when things are already a little quieter, to where you can actually, it can be useful. It's actually useful. If there's a lot of inner noise,
Mhm.
because the nervous system is on overwhelm, which yoga and different kind of practices help to
Mhm.
relax the nervous system and to dissipate pent energies that are just too much, and help reharmonize the system, really. Then being with what is. I didn't go into what being with what is until after some years of yoga for me.
Mhm.
And I didn't do that consciously. It's just what happened. Okay. It's just, that's how it, what sort of arose. But when I was doing the yoga postures, or whatever thing you do, I really try to be present to this moment and learn how to be here. This is the whole point of any of this, whether it's meditation or yoga or qigong or whatever. It's learning how to be here and to not squirm away from the moment as it is.
Mhm.
But you need help by these practices, so that it's not your system's not a big, noisy, overwhelmed mess. Not that you are, but it's not vibrating, really disharmoniously, painfully.
Mhm.
It's unfair to ask oneself to be with what is if we're on overwhelm.
So yoga and then a meditation that's more clearing then, or
A meditation that's more centering, I would say, that
okay.
helps you stop and enter more silence, to where you can just rest more and more in the emptiness of nothing happening, no thought.
Okay, yeah, I know that, of kind of emptiness versus the agitation or whatever might be arising, or the sadness.
Yeah, no, go for the empty, with the
Emptiness, okay.
is quiet before you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that will lend support later to going to meet what is still wanting attention.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Bob, yeah.
Sort of what I guess what I wanted to talk about a little bit sort of flows quite well, and that is I don't remember you last week or this week speaking that much about the movement of energy along with this whole path, sort of where it fits, but also maybe where it fits for me. So a few years ago, I had a very big Kundalini experience. And since that time, they're moving every day, all the time. And what I've found really interesting as well is that it seems like I get these really big movements, these jolts of energy that seem to come through when, I'll just say, I'm perceiving it when a truth shows itself. Whether there's a thought or whether I read something or hear something, this jolt comes through, and it's like I'm being ribbed, elbowed in the ribs saying, listen to this kind of thing. But part of this whole thing is, so I sat in on the healing session 2 weeks, your healing session 2 weeks ago with Sarah. And what has happened ever since that session, to be honest with you, is that I've gone through prolonged times of very blissful energy and very big energy. But also I've gone through times where I can't give the energy a name. I can't give it what kind of emotion there is, but it's sort of, I'm filled up to the top kind of thing. And it's almost overwhelming. It's very hard to stay focused sometimes. And so it's sort of, this has happened before, but this couple of weeks ago kicked it off again kind of thing. And I guess I've been going out for walks in nature to try and ground myself. But there's really this feels like the right thing is happening, but it's also like maybe managing it so that I'm not on the floor writhing or something like that.
Sounds like a lot.
It can be very, very, I've been in the experience where basically I was literally bouncing all over the floor and just my body was on fire. And that's only happened once since the whole experience started. But I know that this can get really overwhelming, and I guess I'm sort of looking for suggestions as to managing this, I guess.
Yeah. What happens when you relax into it?
Okay, first of all, there is an experience of sound, a high-pitched kind of sound, but there's also very often there's physical sensations in my body of manipulation or change or whatever going on.
Okay.
But also, if I relax into it, sometimes it's absolutely blissful. I mean, it really is. It's absolute bliss. But sometimes it feels like I'm right at the top end, and it's sort of almost like I think my body is grasping on. It's sort of almost a reflexive action to try and hold back from going over the top, if you wish.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, the sound that you're hearing is the nada, is the sound of nada. Have you heard of nada yoga?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's the yoga of sound, and it arises, that high-pitched sound arises naturally for some people. It did for me.
Yeah.
And I just used it as my mantra. I mean, that became my mantra.
I do in meditation, very often in meditation. I actually I'm at the point where I can actually make that happen almost at will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So following that sacred vibration sound,
Yes,
is your way right now.
okay.
And I read this little tiny book called Nada Yoga by Shivananda a long time ago, and I was hearing that sound and no one could tell me what it was or what to do, and I knew intuitively to follow it, but it was nice to have that confirmation through this little book. And he said that it's very and it's okay to make it special, like talking about it seems like, oh, it's special, Well, it is special.
Yeah.
Anything that comes that is helping bring us home is very sacred and special. So that's like an honoring, you know. So that vibration, that sound is is the sound of Om in the body, and it's running through the body. So it's the ultimate mantra. And all the physical sensations and all that, they're, well, that's Shakti.
Mhm.
And Shakti is trying to harmonize your system, your body. And it's really amped up, apparently, really amping up.
Really, yeah,
But it knows what it's doing. I wouldn't be so afraid.
okay.
But if you focus during the day on that sound inside, it will be the Shiva and Shakti. You know, the sound is Shiva.
Certainly.
So you'll have both, okay? And then they're guiding you and as you. And, you know, making your body holy and purifying the body, you know, purifying. And that sacred sound is the part of the nadis in your, you know, going up the Sushoma channels, the Kundalini channels, that is already clear enough to hear that. The only way you could hear it is if it went all the way up to your head.
Yeah.
And into the crown. And that's the only way you can hear that sound. Okay?
It's been here for a long time, the sound.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, as soon as I can start to hear that, it's like a signal of awareness. It brings me to awareness.
Yeah. 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 It's the ultimate guidance system that you
Yeah.
have. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's creating harmony inside of a body that is going through a lot.
Okay.
So it's kind of like your touchstone. And it keeps it flowing too. It keeps it, you know, circulating.
So it sort of feels like my body's being taken apart, quite honestly.
Well, I guess it's really serious right now in you.
The jolts that are coming through are, I mean, every day, many, 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 and they're big jolts. Like it's like, you know, when you get frightened by something or something like that, where the body just jolts, that's what it's like many times a day. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and it's because it's still bumping up against something that is not feeling, you know, safe, flowing at ease. It's bumping up against places that are still inhibited.
Right.
So that means you can do some things that will be very nice for your system. I mean, I just, for some reason, saw you putting warm ghee on your head.
Okay.
You have a nice open space here.
Yes, I do.
So it won't be messy, too messy. It'll be messy, but not too messy. So you just pour, you know, there's actually a practice in Ayurveda where they pour ghee, warm ghee on top of the head.
Okay.
I could see that being very helpful to you. I don't know where you live. Maybe there's even a place, and I don't know about during COVID, but in Ayurveda, they have, you know, clinics, you know, places. Yeah. It's called something. Anyway, that would be really good for you. You can even take a spoonful of, I would do like not too big a spoonful, it might make you nauseous, of, you know, coconut oil.
Okay.
And you know, things that are kaphic in nature, things that are soothing to the system.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
Just to kind of cool down the temperature a bit. Not because it's wrong or bad, but just to cool it down so you have an easier time integrating.
Yeah, okay. I speak about sort of being afraid of it going over the top, but it's like there's sort of a sense of fear, but there's sort of not. There's like, okay, that's okay. Like just let it go kind of thing.
Yeah, that's your whole journey right now, is your relationship to this.
Yeah.
It's doing what it's supposed to do. You don't have to you're not meant to make anything happen anymore
Okay.
at this point right now. So it's out of your control completely. So what's in your control and you're meant to look at is just the resistance stance to it all. Your fear, what it could mean to go over the top, any desire that might still be there to want to hold rain energy in. That's probably part of the uncomfortableness, is that it's burning through that, will force of wanting to manipulate in any way.
I don't want to over talk my time, I guess.
It's fine.
When you spoke of the no self, especially last week, since then I've thought about that. And what came to me was sort of recognition of almost a terror, but a fear at least, of if there is no little self, if it is handed over to the divine to let it take care of it, or to let it fall, then what constitutes, I think that this little self is thinking, then I'm not going to live. Then this life will go by, and there will not be this perception of having had a life.
Of what?
There will be this perception of not having had a life, of having given this up, having given this little person's hold on this life. There will be this idea that I gave it away, this little person gave it away. And it's like, I guess that's a real basic kind of thing that came up in my meditations.
Yeah, that's very honest. I think that a lot of people have that in somewhere along the way, at least somewhere along the way, there will be that. And even quite late into the game of what am I giving up, and why, and what will be left, all that stuff. Even though obviously one is longing for
Pull going on. Incredible. I can't leave it alone.
You can't, no, because it's not your pull, it's gravity. It's like that is pulling what it created back to itself.
Yeah.
It creates it throws it out there, it is itself, and it goes on the self journey, and then it pulls it back with gravity, and we don't have a chance. We don't stand a chance.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
This is reminding me a bit, and I'll come back to what you're saying. Someone wrote me a question. I don't know if this person's here. I wouldn't name them anyway, but I don't know if that person who wrote the question is here. They said that I said I would answer it during today's talk. And that is that they said unity sounds like where it's at. I'm paraphrasing, I wanted to talk about this anyway at some point. But no self, or the dimension no self, sounds horrible to them, to them. And my answer is that one doesn't have a choice. You don't get to write the script of what you get and where you go and what ends up happening. We're not in control, and I'm not here to make people feel better about that. So yeah, at one point, you get what you want, which is wholeness, and the journey to wholeness and back to that, to living as true nature, the dimension of that place of your pure beingness, whatever words. That journey will be very unique. Look at your journey.
Yeah.
Yet I recognize a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I recognize Andrew, I recognize Paul, I recognize Atreya, everyone who has spoken today, Catherine, everyone. I recognize that, somewhere along the way, even though it's still very unique for each person.
Yeah.
All of it is the undoing of something created. Undoing, how it gets undone is going to show up in certain ways. And we have thousands of years of context, wonderful religious context, teachings that help us.
Yeah.
But the separate personal self just has a very small window of feeling like I've made it. It doesn't last very long for the most part. Everyone's different. It can be very annoying to others at that little time period. Not that you'll be annoying, but that's a lot of times, that's when people are like, they prophesize, they're like proselytized, they like, they really want to shove it down your throat about going back home, because the personal self is still there enough to feel like it made it whole. But that's a weaning. There's a weaning to that, but it's a wonderful transference. And most people, even though they may go through a shift of the personal will and wondering what the heck's going on and what to do with this falling away of personal will and how will things get done and these common questions. But that transfers into divine will, divine intelligence, livingness is actually really pleasant and enjoyable, because there's still a self there, but it's not the separate self so much, but there's a consciousness, self as consciousness, that is enjoying that part of the journey. And that's, it's, like fulfillment as a self is wholeness. The furthest fulfillment of self with a capital S is that wholeness fulfillment. And so at that point, there's no more, I still want to have this personal little self journey that is, gets those goodies. That's completely out the window. It's not even, it's not even there. It's like, what a relief not to have that anymore, actually. That's the one that was never satisfied.
Yeah. It sort of feels like it's a remnant.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a piece that has been there right from the beginning or thereabouts. And it's, that's the best I can say it, I guess.
Yeah, these shadow pieces, and some of those sometimes are, we have to come to terms with some unfulfillment that didn't take place, especially if we're older, but really at any age. Well, and me too, but at any age, there can be, and I know people at any age who feel like they missed a window, Oh, if I had learned piano at 9 instead of 21, I would be so far along, kind of thing, So there's these, we have to come to terms with the limitations and make peace. But it does happen more easily through the heart, during unity, is to make peace with all this. It's really nice. It's kind of like a scent of 1,000 roses that's pink, light pink, that comes and fills you up and goes like a Mother Mary energy almost, and would go and goes, it's all is well, all even being unfulfilled, all is well, and And it brings the understanding. It doesn't make it wrong. It's like, yeah, it would have been nice. Yeah, it would have been nice to have had that marriage work out.
Yeah.
To not be alienated from one's whatever, like all these things that have taken place or had more fulfillment in career or lived one's potential more. Really, a lot of that is not having lived the personal me's potential because of inhibitions, traumas and inhibitions. And so this loving kindness comes in and says, it's okay. It's understandable. And this is what you get instead. You get to be feeling unified with life.
I have to say that your talk a little bit earlier with the people about compassion, etc., in unity is that really touched me very deeply, and it gave me a new perception of unity that was much less this physical observation and all of those kinds of things, and it moved me very much towards this idea that this unity is through compassion, it is through relationship, it is through all of that.
It is.
Yeah.
And, I've quoted and I speak about Bernadette, but I also want to differentiate myself a bit from also her journey. I don't want to say my journey is her journey, or I don't want to give that confusion to anyone because it's not true. And I didn't know her personally, so I can't say, but from what I've read in her books and so on, I have a real, the unity that I experienced was all about love. And I don't really see that being depicted in her books so much.
Right.
And I'm just saying that in case anyone is seeing unity through certain kind of reference points, it doesn't necessarily give that feeling of that. For me, it was all about loving kindness towards oneself and others and everything that is confused.
Sure. Yeah.
The heart of the world, the heart of compassion. Yeah. So.
Thank you. This has really been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I really hope that this helps soothe you. Understanding can do a lot, even if the body's going through what it's going through.
Yeah.
Intense energies. I used to, sleep 3 hours a night sometimes.
Yeah.
Just with the energies flowing through. And I used to have a lot of Kundalini, different types, and that sound, that not a sound, was my friend.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
it probably helped me get through it all. Not that I had it to the degree you do
yeah.
with the intensity, but it helped me. But it was refining, and I knew that was my anchor.
Yeah.
And I hope that that helps you. Your anchor helps you.
that's as soon as I become aware of it, because I have this feeling it's there all the time, but as soon as I become aware of it, then there's an immediate awareness. I am then in awareness, and I'm aware of that, if you wish.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so just keep one part of your consciousness always attuned, listening to it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It will help you. And it'll settle the nervous system. I'd love to hear how it goes, okay?
Okay, thank you. I'll be back, I guarantee you.
It's nice to meet you.
Really nice to meet you.
So we already are coming to the end, and I just wanted to say something about the journey back to this email that I received about being afraid of what comes next, wherever you are on the journey. And that's, to me, that's a kind of a misuse of energy. Because if one is focusing on fear of what may be coming, or the dissolution of self and all that, it's something to acknowledge. But really what wants to be focused is the moment and what's taking place. Put your attention on what's taking place now. and learn how to trust that the moment. You know, that's really your home. It's all you got is, you know, really what's taking place right now, and the information that's coming to you, and what's being taught, revealed, lived, experienced. What you're experiencing is your is what you have. What you're experiencing right now with all your available abilities, you know, your cognitive and physical and sensing, and what you're experiencing, given all your current abilities as they are, is your truth. Is truth showing itself up as you are right now? Okay, and it's much more important to learn how to open to, with trust, what's revealing itself, and trust that each moment is being guided intelligently, then to project into the future what might be happening and coming. Does that make sense? Because it's really a beautiful, beautiful, unique journey that's tailor-made for you. And if one is worrying about it, we're not enjoying this big adventure that is our life. You know, and having a self, which is feeling like a personal sense of I, a me, is an adventure. Growing that self and all that, and then the undoing part and the going home part is a huge adventure and journey. And further along you go, you'll look back and say, oh my God, it's been so an amazing, intelligently guided journey. And you don't want to waste this time by worrying about it. You know, you're in God's hands, literally. And so God's not going to make, God, intelligence, whatever you want to say, it's not going to make a mistake about how it's bringing you home. The only thing that hurts along the way is just the pain of letting something go. You know, right? What we're moving towards isn't painful. Not even in this dimension of no self, it's not painful at all. So what we're moving towards is perfect and the way it's meant to be. Okay? So to see if you can let go of some of the angst and the energy that might be taking up a lot of bandwidth, that is holding back the flow of evolution that's taking place in you. So you got to find a way to learn how to trust. Whether, for me, it was looking towards, Amma and Christ and different beings for me that were very important in the body and not in the body. It's good to have representatives of people who are in the body too. Otherwise, we're using a lot of imagination. So for me to witness and see what, how they are and what's possible, it relaxed me and say, oh my God, I'm in a long line of being held and this journey, it turns out beautifully. Look at these beings I love and admire, Neem Curly Baba, whoever yours are, right? And use that as a touchstone. I really recommend it. You can't use yourself as a touchstone. You need to use something that is further along, that is already completed to a vast degree this journey, and to see how safe it is. I'll bring up, and we don't have time to talk right now, David, but I'll bring up David Husky. Wait, raise your hand, David. Okay, David Husky, an elder in our group who I know well. And he is in deep unity, okay? And to such a point that surrendered. And he's happy. He's doing great. And completely functional in life. And that's relationships, life as it is. And I'm telling you, we have elders in our own community that we can refer to. Don't overlook that. We don't have to be all alone. And so you can see how safe it is to let go. So your job is to learn how to relax and let go. Let go, let God, as people say. Okay? Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you for your generous donations. And thank you for putting up with the beginning of this, which was really like, it was kind of like, I don't know where, it doesn't matter, but it wasn't happening yet. Just because I turned it on and I knew it was supposed to happen didn't mean it. Maybe that was a teaching in itself. I don't know. Sometimes the further along one goes, and I'll just stop there, the further one goes into unity, like towards the end, where you can't really differentiate anymore that you're in the unity, into the dimension of no self, you just become a response to life. You don't become an initiator so much. So initiation couldn't take place in the moment, just looking at everybody. Sometimes it does. I don't know why that is, but it's like it takes something to make a response take place, if that makes sense. If you don't have will force, what's going to happen? Anyway, now I'm on board, or this is on board, whatever. Language is very poor. So I'm gonna unmute it, or you unmute you, because I don't know how to unmute everybody. They don't allow that. And we're gonna say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful seeing
Susanna.
everybody.
Michael James.
Wonderful seeing you, Susanna.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing great.
You're beautiful. You're all beautiful. You're so beautiful. Oh my. Oh my.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.